Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I have some very interesting information out of Virginia. Before we get into it, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. The links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below. My merch is displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1, 2, and 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. Finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe, click the like button, and please leave a comment. It really does help, and it matters. And now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with today's upload, shall we? All right, everybody. I said it in yesterday's upload that I had some very interesting information passed along to me by DJ, and that I didn't want to share anything until I could have DJ on the channel to discuss what is going on, and that way you guys can hear it from him, how I heard it. DJ, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good, Jeff. Can't complain.
I hear that. So, basically, I don't know where you want to start on this, but you told me that your friend, he sold his property, and apparently it was kind of like a Luke deal. The government came in, offered him a deal, and he couldn't refuse.
Yeah, he got to talk to that second guy that was in that vehicle when that first supposed FEMA agent come to evaluate the statistics on his place, so to speak.
Okay.
And he got to know this guy pretty well, and the guy was right around his age. And actually, he's done sold the house. And the way it goes is this agent, his name is the one that's going to be purchasing the house, but it's paid for by a government grant. You know, he can't go into what branch of government it is, and I'm not going to say, but we all know. And he's the one that's fronting the purchasing of the house, but the funds are coming from good old US of A, Uncle Sam. And he got to talking to this guy, and this guy told him what he could without spilling the complete bowl of beans, sort of like what Victor could.
Right.
And they have known about what everybody knows as the rake, the crawler. They have known about this species for some while, and they actually got a name for it. There's some kind of Latin name in the Latin language that they call it, but what they've been calling it, they call it pale demon, is what it stands for. And what they do know, that they know of so far, that they are inhabiting old coal mines through Appalachia. Not just down through here, but the whole trail all the way up to Maine. Anywhere there's an old mine that's been shut down, these things are taking up residence in it. Don't matter if the mine's been there for 20 years or 200 years. If there's a way they can get in it, or if there's a way in or out they can find it, they're taking up residence, staying in there. And they also have come to find out that a lot of what Dogman and other cryptids have got the blame for are not exactly alone in doing this. There's other ones that are responsible, and the crawler is one of them. They do know that they do feed on blood. Blood is one of the things that they really, if not the main source of food. And a lot of attacks, he did tell him this, that down in Kentucky through Tennessee, there was a lot of wildlife attacks on sheep, pets, horses, cattle, goats. And if you notice, when this happened, there was more than one. There was several of them in a bunch, per tragedy. And he said what they know of thus far is they're like how'd you say, like a piranha when they smell blood.
Like a pack?
Yeah. If they come across several of them of the same species that they're feeding on, they get all excited and lose their train of thought. They'll be feeding on one, they'll throw it down, grab another one, suck a little bit on that if there's any more, and just keep on going. and they're like a crack addict, so to speak. I hate to use that term in reference to speaking, but he said that's how they behave. They lose their train of thought when they're around more than one source of food. It's like a piranha when they smell blood in the water, or a shark, so to speak. They can't get enough. And he also, that a lot of them have been seen around and feeding on dead animals. Well, come to find out, it's not the flesh that is not their main source. They're after the blood, the coagulated blood in the rotten flesh.
Right.
And that they're chewing the flesh to get to the coagulated blood because they have a taste for it. And a lot of these animals they've been found with big cuts or one great big fight right around the neck area with the throat pulled out. That is why, because they are sucking the blood out. They don't do it for meanness, they're sucking the blood. And if you remember a lot of them, he confirmed that they were found with no blood in them.
Right, yeah.
That is one of the reasons.
That's crazy. Now, when you told me about your friend, they pretty much put his house, they blocked it up and they're taking the house out and just buying the land? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, they're purchasing everything. They purchase, his house, everything. They're already tearing it down.
Right. Now, what are they putting there for?
He tells me the guy told him they're going to put something like a small substation to control it. It'll look like, they're maintaining the water supply and checking the water and all that. But he said that's just a front.
Yeah.
He said there's a lot more that goes on beside these little brick shacks you see beside the road on a main highway or off of a secondary road. He said there's a lot more use to them besides checking the water.
Yeah, especially there's mines right there, right, on your friend's property?
Yes, and that's all he could tell him about that. He said that's their primary function to the public is, they're checking the water, the pressure, the chemical content for any pollution, but he said that's just a front. He said there's a lot more goes on under them little buildings. So that's all he could tell him about that.
Okay. What, now, I guess you had said you had spoke to him last night about a couple things. What's going on?
There's a lot of, I don't know, I brought you up to speed.
Yeah, I shared last night that I shared in the, I kind of gave him the audience a feel of, apparently there was a lot of aircraft traffic last night or the night before. A lot of helicopter, a lot of cargo, and all military planes and stuff like that in Virginia.
Mm-hmm. He did get a little bit of info on that. It was a massive amount of Dogman packs. I don't know how many or how big.
Okay. But
they were traveling across southwestern Virginia, and evidently they had been spotted big enough to alert the military. If that, to disperse these military aircrafts.
And ironically enough, there's more helicopters tonight.
Exactly. I don't know if their intent was to film, to track, to drop off specialists to eradicate them, to destroy them, to bomb. I don't know. But anyway, there was enough for them to worry that they went ahead and sent these aircraft out. I don't know if they're to monitor, follow, or capture or what, but it was enough to make them worry.
Yeah.
And in numbers like that, that's pretty bad if it sets the military off.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, like you had said, with the helicopters, I think that would be kind of like a hunting, but with the planes, the cargo planes, they can easily be converted to kind of a tracking, monitoring, a kind of a mobile command center in the sky.
Right.
And like Victor told us, them being chipped, it's very easy. Ironically enough, this facility that Victor told us about is in Virginia somewhere. And like you and I had talked before, I don't think it's anywhere close to where any of the government buildings are in the cities. I think it's probably in southwestern Virginia where, here's another thing I was thinking about. Eric Smith disappeared, 13 years ago. Now, we had talked to Victor. I had talked to Victor. You said, hey, bring this up to him. I think it was your question actually or something. And how would he know that name unless that facility that he worked for or worked out of was down, you know?
Yeah, he'd been questioned about it.
Yeah, you know, like, or he was, you know, out looking for him.
Yeah, they contacted him. I think they contacted him for advice or something.
Yeah.
But they never got involved.
No, but I'm saying that facility that Victor worked at, I believe is down around where you are, because he knew a lot about Eric's disappearance right off the bat. That's what I'm saying.
It's quite possible. I mean, you got to think back to the times of, you know, just for instance, for the historic retribution and fact, Jamestown. They said when Jamestown was found, even up to date, there is hundreds of tunnels underneath Jamestown that the public don't know about. Mm-hmm. So that was all these little, you know, these little communities all across Virginia and West Virginia and North Carolina. When these places were first started coming, you know, it's hard to tell the amount of tunneling that, you know, our ancestors helped build that could possibly go into these mines.
Yeah.
And that facility could be sitting right down here, right underneath me right now. We not know it.
Yeah, I really feel like I don't know if it's in Tazewell or Buchanan, but it's close. I have a feeling, because it only would make sense to me that he would know so much about Eric Smith right off the bat without even, you know, I think it was on a Q&A that someone had talked to him, and he just rattled off the information. And also that would explain a lot of the Dogman sightings in your area, a lot of these strange canine werewolf looking things, cryptid, you know, the crawlers,
right,
and all the deaths and all the disappearances that, you know, 1 year, less than 1 year, you've got at the beginning of 2022, it was like every other week there was something new, a missing person, body being discovered, someone dying, you know. It was very, very strange in your area for a while. And then with the weather patterns that couple of weeks back is just not, something doesn't make sense. And I really think that facility is down in that area somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think if my memory serves correct, didn't a couple of your viewers call in and try to get him to sort of let off, you know, where this was at, and he would disdain from the question and change the subject.
Because a lot of people were thinking Richland or whatever, which is by you too. No, Richmond. Yeah. And he kind of just let everything, you know, slide by. It's just hard to fathom that a underground military base as large as he says it was, 7 acres, would be close to the city or where these other federal buildings are. Because how are these dogmen going to come in when they're getting called in? You know what I'm saying?
Right. Exactly. You would have to be off the grid, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, it might not be in your town, but close to it would make a lot of sense to me.
Right, out in the country.
Yeah, and then to have what's going on, the government coming in, or FEMA, Homeland Security, building that kind of air quotes water filtration and water monitoring station. It might be just an attachment to something.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. He wouldn't comment no more on that. That's all the guy could get out of him. That's basically all he could tell without, you know, being questioned about his job or putting his job in jeopardy.
Right.
But he also did let on something else, that these crawlers, or pale demons as they refer to them and the cryptid Dogman are not buddies. They do not get along. The species are mortal enemies of each other. They do know that that's a dominated fact. They cannot stand to be around in the same area.
Yeah.
And if push comes to shove, they will face off against each other.
Yeah. I mean, it only makes sense. You know, you told me something about their mobility too.
He said that they can. He said they can crab walk under 8-inch piece of barbed wire, and they can crab walk backwards up a tree.
Wow.
He said there's nothing that these things can't do. He said they remind you of a crab and a spider all rolled into one. But 8 inches, to crab walk with all 4 of their limbs on the ground, to go under from the base of the ground up to 8 inches in a piece of wire. My God. I don't see how they could do it, but this is what this guy told him. He said you'd have to see it to believe it.
Yeah, 8 inches is not.
No,
that's virtually impossible it is impossible for a human, even a human child, to do something like that.
Right. Crab walk, I don't see how.
And these things can crab walk up trees backwards, and I mean, there's that video that I showed on the channel a 3 weeks ago, somewhere around there, and it was on the side of a tree, and the teenagers heard this strange noise out there, and they went and looked, and it appeared to be hanging off the side of the tree with no kind of effort at all.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I wish, and we had actually asked Victor about these, and like he said, he only specialized in the big 3. He agreed that there were these crawlers. He didn't know anything about them. He was a hunter. That's all he did. He wasn't a scientist. He was just a hunter. I wish we could figure out more about these things. And because I'm fascinated by these things, now that mortal enemy of Dogman, Sasquatch is a mortal enemy. I mean, we all know that you put apex predators in an area, they're not going to get along.
No.
So,
it's just hard to fathom what these. It's like they've got a skeleton. It's like he said. We know that they have a skeletal system, an internal skeleton, like we do. But they do things that would remind you they'd be like a boneless muscle, like a piece of ooze, with the way they can get under stuff and through and over. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
And he said most of the people that do know about these things that he's associated with, they're very frightened of them. It's not to the point that they don't know what they're frightened of. It's just to the point that he said they don't know nothing about them. They're enough about their abilities or what they can or cannot do to really try to put any basis of an opinion. He said everybody has seen things, what they know and what's been documented. These things they're very, very off. I mean, they do things that dogmen can't even do. And just the thought of the lore that these things live off blood is enough to scare any right-minded human clean out of their skivvies. I mean,
yeah, and then carrion as well. I mean, they're just the whole way you described everything and when we were talking last night was just like, wow. I mean, they're terrifying. They're terrifying, and the more I think about these pale demons, you hear more encounters with them in wooded areas with mountains or kind of, where cave systems would be.
Correct.
And it explains some things. I don't know if you remember, maybe it was last year, beginning of this year probably. The body was found in Tennessee in a cave, and
oh yeah, I remember.
The mom had said, the news had asked the kid's mom that found it, "Are you going to let your son hang out in the woods anymore?" And she said, "Yeah, it can't happen twice in this area." And it had happened like 6 years prior to. There had been another body found in a cave system in Tennessee in that same kind of gated community area.
Right.
And there's places in New York that these creatures have been seen, and where they've been seen is in the Adirondacks. There's 2 cases in the Adirondacks and a case in the Catskills. So that just proves that they are living in caves underground. And, I believe that Chud was kind of like a soft disclosure or whatever.
It very well could be. I mean, we know that he said they are somewhat, well, we already know they're subterranean to a certain extent. I don't know if they're just learning in the last few years to come out and hunt on the surface, if there's a way they've done it, or they've been doing it beneath our eyes and the government's known about them for generations, or what's going on.
Right.
But they're on the surface more now than ever.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe with the fracking happening more often nowadays, could have pushed them up. Chud came out in the 80s. Descent came out in the 90s or early 2000s, late 90s. And then all these creatures looked very similar to what we are seeing these crawler pale demons looking like. But in the late 2000s is when fracking really kind of became, predominant in use, in our country.
Exactly.
And all of a sudden, here they are. It makes sense to me that, you flood something's home, push them out of their cave system, they're going to come up.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's crazy.
They're going to cohabitate, feeding area with they're going to compete with other food sources like dogmen, natural animals like bears, coyotes, wolves. They're going to compete for the food source, and with dogmen already the way they are, this could be a battle of generational proportions. We don't know what's going to happen.
Bigfoot, dogmen, these things, we don't know. I'm almost thinking that, people are speculating they may be government experiments, they may be this, they may be that. Well, they may be some sort of long lost kind of reptilian man. If you think about how reptilians can do things, like a lizard. Lizards, geckos, they can kind of really crab walk up anything. If you think about how they can move, how snakes can get into very small crevices and hide.
It's amazing. You're right. I mean, it's just the thoughts could go on and on about what these things could possibly do, or where they're from, or what they're related to.
Yeah, I mean, I really think that these things are related to reptilian somehow. Not anything that we would consider reptilian, because when we think of reptilian lizard men, that's what we think of, but the skin itself resembles kind of like another reptilian form. Like there's these I think there's like a lizard that's supposed to live underground in the darkness. Their skin changes. Their underground is warm. There's geothermal places underground that can keep them warm. Reptilians love the heat, as we know. They're cold-blooded, so living underground by these geothermal whatever they're called, portals, or not portals, but kind of underground geothermal furnaces, let's say, for a lack of better words. My brain's not working, but that would explain how they stay warm and how they live underground comfortably.
Exactly.
And a pale demon, back in the days, we always used demon as a, we associate demons lizard-like, and with the forked tongue, and devil has a forked tongue, and pale,
forks, exactly, split tongue.
Yeah. Now, we were talking about the helicopter thing. You'd said something about pads being places.
There's pads. This person told him that he was aware of there was 8 pads in parts of Buchanan County alone. not the whole county, but just a small part where old minings used to be, and they have been reclaimed. And there are secret helipads on each one of these mining properties. And I don't know if they're meant there for FEMA, or basically you could say we know what they're there for, but he couldn't really spoke. The only thing he said he knew there was 8 of them, and just a small portion of the county alone.
Yeah.
He didn't give the spots, but he said it's on abandoned, reclaimed mining property. Which then he said, why would they be there?
Yeah.
I mean, the mines have done been mined out and reclaimed. That's when they fill everything back in with rock, put soil over top of it, plant trees to make it solid, and they abandon it.
Yep.
Why would there be a helipad on these things? It's not to sit there and, take the portion of this air about the trees they plant and check the CO2 level. We know better than that. There's something going on around here, and it's been going on, and it's just now starting to leak out to the surface.
Yeah, yeah. And
I hope that it ain't too late.
Yeah, I agree. Now that I think more about these attacks that happened in your area, it makes sense that, and I did say, possibility of him being Dogman, yes, but we don't know. So, it's speculation. But the more I think about it, like the Timothy Honecker case, in that small culvert, a Dogman would have a really hard time moving through a small culvert. But or that guy, I don't have my file in front of me where all the people, but the one gentleman that was found in the cave torn apart just recently when the police had the town shut down, ATVs cruising around. Remember that?
Right, I remember. Yeah, it was up in Pounding Mill.
Yeah. And
you're right.
That was a small cave system, you had told me. It was nothing very large.
No. And what I understand, he wasn't that far back in there either.
Yeah, and that cave system.
Was left?
Yeah, the cave system off of 460. Maybe Dogman, there's subscriber had seen like that fox-headed Dogman go into that one cave that time.
Right.
But these things living in these caves, living underground, maybe that's where the kind of hatred started,
It's very possible.
And then, of course, food.
Right, exactly. They're going to compete for food. I mean, we don't know what it could be. This could be a interdimensional war. We don't know. We don't know where these things come from. We don't know where Dogman comes from. We don't know what it really is. We don't even know what Bigfoot. They could be, aliens that travel through portals. We don't know.
Yeah.
But if these things get overpopulated enough and be an interstellar war, we don't know what's going to happen between the species.
Yeah.
The guy did make a joke, but my friend told me he thinks he meant it. He said the more of these things that become known, if they're closer to the area, he said, I will invest in one thing, and that'd be a flamethrower. He said he laughed and giggled, said, no, I'm just kidding, and blew it off. But he says he thinks he really meant it.
Yeah.
But the only problem is that I don't see the general store anywhere in any state stocking flamethrowers to the common John.
No.
But if that's a prelay to what these things are, maybe that they have comparable tolerances like us to heat and cold, but, if he's suggesting that the only thing that can harm these things is a damn flamethrower, pardon my English, I apologize, but that's scary. I mean, it really is.
Yeah. It's, you mentioned just now, you had said, like, interdimensional kind of war. We don't know where Dogman, we don't know where Bigfoot, we don't know where these things come from. And I was just sitting here and, listening to you talking, and in my head popped, those old, B movies where, humans are, in their towns and there's these, in the woods or wherever, these monsters are, not huge monsters, but these are monsters, and they're fighting. I really think that, the more I look into these things, the more I talk about them with people, and the more I compare them to old not old movies, but, movies from the 80s especially, it seems, 80s and 90s, it seems like, there was a lot of soft disclosures going on back then.
Yeah, like you mentioned, you're the movie that I think any horror movie fan is reasonably a fan of, and that's Chud, like you said.
Yeah.
Soft disclosure.
Yep. And
look how many B-rated movies and others have introduced Bigfoot, Yeti, Sasquatch.
Yeah.
And they're starting to make Dogman movies now as cheap based as they are, but they're being introduced slowly.
What's interesting is another thing I thought about is how, when Victor introduced us to the big three, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolf, and explained werewolf and said, look at the old Lon Chaney movies, how he looked. There was a reason why they made him look like that, I think, because they already knew, even back then, that this creature, the werewolf, didn't have elongated snout. It had kind of a snout, but not elongated like a German Shepherd. Very man-like, this and that. They could have easily... it was back in the 30s or 40s, but they could have easily used Hollywood magic to make them look more like a dog than what he looked like in that movie. So soft disclosures probably happening back then.
I agree with that.
It only makes sense. It really does. Part of me, I'm hoping that. I did reach out to Victor, like I said, and I gave everyone an update, but I'd really like to grill him. And I say grill because, I don't mean it like, put him on the hot plate, but I'd really like to see what he knows about these things, because...
Well, what else has he got to lose, Jeff? Like you said, he's retired now.
Yeah.
He's not
sick.
Going that well.
He's dying. He literally is dying, so...
What does he have to hide? What can they do to him that life alone has already done if they ain't done none of part of this themselves?
Yeah. I'm hoping that he gets enough strength up to where he and I can talk and I can ask him these questions.
Not as much as a deathbed confession, but he can elaborate a lot more on the subject now where he's not employed by them than he ever could.
Yeah.
Whether he chooses to do that or not is up to him, but I don't see anything else that they can do to him.
Nope.
Really.
I agree.
He's suffered enough.
Yeah, he has. These, last thing, because I know you're not really feeling great. These strip mines that, last time me and you talked, and I didn't record it. It was just you and I shooting the breeze, actually, and we were talking about where your new home is. And you said, hey, look at this, look here. And, you had said, there's a cemetery up here, there's this, that, and there's a strip mine, because I had it on Google Maps that day. Do you remember when we were doing that? Yeah. And... it really does make a lot of sense why they would put a helipad on these abandoned reclaimed strip mines or old mines, because no one goes up there. They're in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Easy access to train tracks, roads, but not too easy to where the public would be aware.
Yeah, and another thing, I used to work in a mining field, someone related to contractor years ago, and I do know these one thing that a lot of people forgot, and that's including myself, all these mines have maps, engineered, possessed blueprint maps that tell you above ground and underground where their borders are, where their coal lines end, and if you think about that, a topographical map, they could easily go in one place and come out another, unbeknownst to civilians, and transport these things or hunt these things. We don't know.
No, we don't.
But these places have already been reclaimed or remined. I know there's enough maps on record. They know exactly where they're going, where their time to get there, how long it takes, and the easiest route in and out.
I wonder if there's any of those old mining maps available online. You'd probably have to go through like Virginia.gov.
Let me check a couple of my sources, Jeff, and I think I might be able to get my hands on a couple of them.
Yeah, because I'd like to see some of those and just see, just because when you have it in front of you, then that's when the real research happens, is you can start, and like I've said a million times, this is a science of theory. And that really makes no sense, at all, science of theory. But when you've got the information and ideas in front of you, then you can start building a real kind of, you can start putting the patterns together, and so I don't know. I'm just glad that you have not had any kind of run-in with these kind of crawlers.
No, I've seen enough of the other species that I don't want to do nothing to do with these. I don't care what people think, what kind of man if I am or I'm not, but I'm not big enough to admit that they actually, the thought of them scare the crap out of me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I've seen enough of these things that have been captured on video and in lore to understand that they're, whatever they are, they're not to be trifled with in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Funny thing, before we go, last thing, is we were talking last night, and I said, and I kind of had a brain fart, and it was one of those moments where I put, you just put things together, and I was like, whoa, remember the other day when I said, hey, these werewolves and dogmen were seen back in the day, and possibly the transformation thing got mixed up, this, and that, and that's where that lore came from. And then we were talking about these pale demon crawlers and the blood, eating blood. And I was like, maybe that's where the legend and lore for vampires came from.
You're exactly right.
Remember the old movies or some really decent vampire movies that, and I really hate saying vampire because Hollywood is just, but they've kind of, the pretty boy vampire. But if you look at the old ones, like Nosferatu, bald, really gangly looking.
Exactly.
Take the clothes off of that person, and what do you have? You have a very crawler-like looking creature right there in front of you.
Yeah, there was another movie that's been done in the last few years. I can't really remember the name of it. I do know I had Ethan Hawke in it, and the main player was in the first Jurassic Park as the Doctor. And it was set futuristic, and the one that they portrayed is when the vampires don't have the blood that they normally need to feed on. The one that looked like it was about ready to die looked more like a crawler than anything in that movie.
Yeah. Or I Am Legend. I Am Legend.
Oh, there you go. There's another one. Perfect example.
Dark. They're living in a dark, abandoned buildings in the cities.
Yes.
They're attacking anything with blood. They only come out at dark time. Yet They weren't vampires. They were not a vampire. They were something else. They did not label them things as vampires, but they had abnormal strength. They could do abnormal feats. And I'm not saying this is what we're dealing with. I'm just saying this is what Hollywood is giving us as a soft disclosure for all of these creatures that exist. Jaws for like the God, what's the big shark there? The megalodon.
Great white.
No, the megalodon.
Oh yeah, the megalodon.
As a cryptid. It's just, these are all soft disclosures that Hollywood has blessed us with, and we failed to realize that they are a soft disclosure. They're not just entertainment; they're information. So,
well, not jumping from one clue to another, but look at the whale carcass that have washed up on the coast all the way around, different countries. Humpback whales, 60, 70, 50, 60, 70 feet long with a bite out of them the size of a speedboat.
Yep. Almost torn in half, like they're bit right on the spine, and it looks like, or the great white that was swallowed whole. And brought down to depths that were unreachable, even for a great white to go down.
Yeah, just the Marietta Trench.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on, my friend. Thank you for keeping me in the loop, keeping us in the loop, because the information that you're coming across is valuable, and I appreciate it.
No
And I know
problem.
everyone else does too. So.
Well, you've got a good platform here, and you're doing excellent work, and I'm just glad to be able to help you, educate these people. We're not educating you; we're just letting them bring it. You're pulling back the curtain to the real truth, and these people are seeing it.
Yeah, everybody.
And then they deserve the truth. And like what our government says or believes, people deserve the truth.
Yeah. No matter what it is. No matter what
Right.
it is. All right, brother. Don't hang up. I want to talk to you for a minute after a minute or so. I know you're not feeling good, so it was good having you on, DJ. Thank you.
All right. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
You as well.
All right. Bye-bye.
Feel better.
Will do.
It's always a pleasure talking to DJ. I enjoy... Sorry, my throat is... I've been drinking coffee all day. I enjoy... really kind of bouncing ideas off of him when we start talking about like the stuff that's going on in his neck of the woods in Virginia. And, the more, like I said, the more you look at this stuff and the more ideas that come to mind that make sense, chances are that's the truth. That's just how I'm feeling as of late. I don't know. I might be wrong. I might be right. Who knows? With that, everyone, stay safe, please. Be hyper vigilant. Be aware of your surroundings. Know what's going on at all times around you, because you may let your guard down 1 second, and it may be that time that you do when things happen. So, with that, may the Great Spirit watch over us all. May He guide us down that path that we call life.